Hey guys, it's Brooke. I just wanted to remind you to set your calendars for March 26, 2021 at 5 p.m. There will be a virtual garden party hosted on stereo.com. I'll be interviewing Jen from Forever Blooms with Jennifer, and we will be taking any and all gardening questions that you have. And just remember, you guys can actually call in. So I will see you guys next Friday at 5 p.m. Hey guys, it's Brooke from The Vintage Gardener. Welcome back to my channel. So it is now early March, and I apologize because you're probably going to start seeing some of my videos out of sequence, and I do apologize for that. It's just I'm trying to keep things on topic for when people need to start things and that sort of thing, or a little ahead of things, so that if you've never done it before, you kind of know what to do before you kind of get to that point. So it is March. And in New Jersey, this is the time we start doing our seeds. So I'm still winter sowing, and I will also be starting some of the warmer weather things out in my cold frame. But this year I'm going to be doing something different, and I'm going to be starting my dahlias in pots a little early. Typically for me, I start my dahlias April 1st. Now I do it differently. In the past I've done it differently for most people because I typically start my dahlias directly into the ground. I usually don't pot them up. I'm potting them up early this year because number one, it looks like our weather is turning. I'm going to be putting them in my cold frame greenhouse, so it's going to be much warmer, like 20 degrees warmer in there than the than the ambient temperature outside. And as from what I can see, we don't have any freezes. Dahlias typically can handle freezing temperatures. They usually die when it gets to 28. As of right now, we don't have any 28 degrees nights coming up, but if we do, I'll just run out, grab the pots, and bring them inside. Now, as you can see from the title of the video, I am going to be watering my dahlias after planting them in these pots, and I know that that is a departure from what people say. If you watch other YouTubers, even if you get some of the instructions from some other dahlia growers, they'll say don't water them until you see growth. I've never followed that. My personal philosophy when it comes to gardening is that if you want your plants to thrive and survive, you really should mimic nature as much as possible. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still going to be, you may still do it in a more controlled fashion, but I think we've gotten so used to coddling our plants with fertilizers and special seed starting mixes that we think they can't handle stuff, and they really can. Dahlias, they're not native to New Jersey. They're native to more south, I think more like Mexico. A lot of these plants, all plants, they grow in the wild. They grew in the wild just fine without man's intervention, and somehow we are arrogant enough to believe that they can't survive unless, we help them. They'll be fine. So here's why I water my dahlias, because number one, like I said, I start mine out in April. So if they're out in the ground, it's not like they're not getting water. If it rains, they get water. They get whatever nature gives them. And they have done just fine. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some tubers that don't grow, but quite frankly, I wasn't expecting those tubers to grow because when I pulled them out of the bag, I could see that they were clearly desiccated to the point that they, I was hoping that the water would kind of rehydrate them. But it didn't. So some of them I'm not surprised. But the tubers that were in good condition, I put outside, I've always gotten sprouts on them. Now, that said, should you overwater your dahlias? No, because they will rot. But dahlias are, as far as I can see from growing things like peonies and daffodil bulbs and other rhizomes and like blurred irises, they do need some moisture to break dormancy. They kind of do. And so when I put them in these pots, I've already moistened the potting soil, so it does have moisture in it. I may give them a little extra water. I'm not saying you have to give them a lot, but when I put them out in my cold frame, this week the temperatures are going to be, at 60, which means in there it's going to be in the 80s. So I'll be monitoring the moisture level in the soil. If the soil starts getting really, really dry, I'm going to give them water, because you know, if you let your soil in the tubers dry out, obviously you're not going to get anything. Yes, you can water them. As a matter of fact, last year, with some of them, because I waited till much later to plant them, and I got some of them on clearance, they were kind of desiccated. In those situations, I will actually soak my dahlias in water for 6 hours. Sometimes I can soak them up for up to 24 hours before putting them in the ground. And just depending upon their level of desiccation, I may turn the sprinklers on every day, every other day. That's what I did when I planted about like 30 dahlias in my sunset garden. And I gotta be honest with you, they did fine. As a matter of fact, every single one of them broke dormancy. Every single one of them sprouted. Now, for other reasons, because number one, I think I planted them too late, and number two, I don't think that area got enough sun. They didn't all bloom, but they certainly got 2 to 3 feet high. So that is why I water my dahlias, and that's why the way I will continue to do so. So at the end of the day, it's up to you. If you look at the dahlia, I got these dahlias from Lowe's. If you look at the pack, they'll actually tell you once you plant it to water it well. Now, like I said, it's just a matter of overwatering. So the type of dahlias I have that I'm going to plant now is Dahlia Gideon, and I'll flash a picture so you can see it better. Dahlia Sweet Love. Dahlia Takeoff, which is an anemone, a flowering dahlia, which I love anemone flowering dahlias. And then Dahlia Color Spectacle and Dahlia Seattle. Now, I'm probably going to go back and get some more. On top of that, I do have 6 that are coming from Swan Island Dahlias. There's this one website that actually, a different website that actually has some wholesale varieties, so I may get them. I may get some of those because I do like dahlias. They're easy to grow. In terms of soil, you know, they do well. If your soil is fertile, fine. If your soil is not the best, fine. You don't have to fertilize them like that. As a matter of fact, I didn't fertilize my dahlias at all last year, and they performed very well. It's really an easy growing plant. So if you're new to garden, I would definitely tell you to bring, to get some dahlias. Once they start flowering, they will flower through to a hard frost. So in New Jersey, you know, we don't get our first killing frost till sometimes end of October, early November. So it's a lot of bloom time. Okay, so as I said before, I have already pre-moistened, pre-wet my soil. So it's nice and clumpy. It's not like overly wet, but it'll get the job done. So I'm planting them up in gallon containers. Although I have some that I'm reusing, they're outside draining right now. These containers I got from Dahlias. They were like, I don't know, maybe 69 cents a piece. They're pretty inexpensive. So I just grabbed a bunch. So what I usually do is I fill it a little at the bottom, and then I put the tuber, because I think you need to plant it a good, like maybe like 6 inches deep, or maybe, well, the tip, I guess, I usually dig my hole 6 inches deep because a lot of times these tubers are pretty big, and so the top of it ends up being like 3 to 4 inches like under the soil. To be quite honest, sometimes if it's a little bit more shallow under the soil, it's not necessarily a bad thing. To be quite honest, I would probably err on the side of a little bit more shallow than a little bit more deep. So. Okay, so that's probably, so it's, I don't know if you can see it, it's probably filled to right here, okay? So like I said, if I feel it's like too deep, I'll just take some of the soil out, because you don't want to bury them too deeply. As a matter of fact, they gave you a nice little planting guide on the packet. So you know, you want it to be maybe between here to here. You know, and the other thing you have to take into consideration is if you have mulch. If you have mulch, just remember that to count that mulch in terms of how far it's underneath the surface, which is another reason I tend to go more shallow, because a lot of times when I plant things, I usually put down maybe 2 inches of mulch. you're putting down 2 to 3 inches of mulch, and you really need to have your dahlias only like an inch under the soil. So that is how I do that. So here we go. Here's a dahlia. These have a bunch of eyes. I can see them. They're like really right there. And so these are nice. I recently got these at Lowe's, so they have not dried out. So I'm just gonna put these babies right in here. I tried to put them so that the eyes are facing up. And hold on a second. And yeah, it's about 3.5 inches under there. So now I'm just gonna fill up the rest of the pot. Okay, and I just got dirt all over my kitchen floor. Okay, that's one pot down, and I'm just going to fill up this tray, and then I'm going to do some labels for them because, yeah, I mean, I will have no idea which one it was if I don't put a label on it. Okay guys, so that's it. So they're all planted. The soil is nice and damp. So that should be good. But like I said, when I put it in the my hoop house tomorrow, I'll just be monitoring the moisture level in the soil. Like I said, if it gets 60 degrees outside, it's going to be 80 in there. So I just want to make sure that the soil doesn't dry out too much. You know, depending upon how warm it stays, I may only have to water it once a week. And what I'll do is, instead of doing a water from the top, I'll probably just pour water in the tray and let it wick up from there, because I find it does well. And that pretty much will be it. So yeah, so that's the 12 dahlias that I have right now. And I'm going to be getting some more, so I'll definitely be potting those up, but I just wanted to show you that. So anyway guys, that's it. So don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share, and I will see you guys in the next video.